challenges the new King's Hand Tyland Lannister faced were daunting, for winter had descended upon Westeros and would endure for 4 long years, a winter as cold and bleak as any in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. The kingdom's trade had collapsed during the Dance of the Dragons, as well as countless villages, towns and castles had been slighted or destroyed. Bands of outlaws and broken men haunted the roads and woods. Even the best hand of the king would struggle to repair such damage under better circumstances. A more immediate problem Lord Tyland faced was posed by the Dowager Queen, who refused to reconcile herself to new King Aegon III. The murder of her last son had turned Alicent's heart into a stone. None of the regents wished to see her put to death, some for compassion, others for fear that such an execution might rekindle the flames of war. Yet she could not be allowed to take part in the life of court as before. She was too apt to rain down curses on a new king, or snatch a dagger from an unwary guardsman. Alicent could not even be trusted in the company of the little queen. When she last allowed to share a meal with her, she had told Jaehaera to cut her husband's throat whilst he was sleeping, which set the child to screaming. So Tyland felt he had no choice but to confine the Dowager Queen to her own apartments in Maegor's Holdfast, a gentle imprisonment, but imprisonment nonetheless. The Hand then set out to restore the kingdom's trade and began the process of rebuilding. Great lords and small folk alike were pleased when he abolished the taxes enacted by Queen Rhaenyra and Lord Celtigar. With the crown's gold once more secure, Tyland set aside 1,000,000 golden dragons as loans for lords whose holdings had been destroyed during the dance. Though many availed themselves of the coin, the loans did bring about a rift between the Iron Throne and the Iron Bank of Braavos. He also ordered the construction of 3 huge fortified granaries in King's Landing, Lannisport and Goldtown, and the purchase of enough grain to fill them. The latter decree drove up the price of grain sharply, which pleased those towns and lords with the wheat and corn and barley to sell, would anger the proprietors of inns and pot shops, and the poor and hungry in general. But with winter setting in, the Hand saw no choice, and saw this as a necessity. Though he called a halt to the work on the gargantuan statues of Prince Aemond and Prince Daeron that had been commissioned by Aegon II, but not before the heads of the 2 princes had been carved. The Hand set hundreds of stonemasons, carpenters and builders to work on the repair and restoration of the Dragon Pit. The gates at King's Landing were strengthened at his command, so they might be better able to resist attack from within the city walls as well as without. The Hand also announced the Crown's funding for the construction of 50 new war galleys. When questioned, he told the regents that it was meant to provide work for the shipyards and defend the city from fleets such as the Triarcy, but many suspect Sir Tyland's real purpose was to lessen the Crown's dependence on House Velaryon of Driftmark, which had been a huge factor in the onset of the Dance of the Dragons. The Hand might also have been mindful of the continuing war in the West when he set the shipwrights to work. While the ascent of Aegon III did mark the end of the worst of the carnage of the Dance of the Dragons, it was not wholly correct to assert that the young king's coronation brought peace to Westeros. Fighting continued in the West the first 3 years of the boy king's reign, as Lady Joanna of Casterly Rock continued to resist the attacks of Dalton Greyjoy's Ironborn in the name of her son, Lord Loren. The details of the war lay outside the purpose of this tale, but suffice to say that whilst the Red Kraken had proved a valuable ally to the Blacks during the Dance of the Dragons, the coming peace demonstrated that the Iron Men had no more regard for them than the Greens. Though he had stopped short of openly declaring himself as King of the Iron Isles, Dalton Greyjoy paid little heed to any of the edicts coming from the Iron Throne during these years. Maybe perhaps because the king was a boy and his Hand a Lannister, and commanded to cease raiding, Greyjoy continued as before. Told to restore the women Iron Men had carried off, he replied that only the drowned god may surrender the bond between a man and his salt wives. Instructed to return Fair Isle to its former lords, he replied, should they come rising back from beneath the sea, we shall gladly give them back once what was theirs. While Joanna Lannister's attempt to build a new fleet of warships to take the battle to the Iron Men, the Red Kraken descended upon her shipyard and put them to the torch, and made off with another 100 women in a single raid. The Hand sent an angry reproach, to which Lord Dalton replied, the women of the West prefer men of the iron to cowardly lions, it would seem, for they jump into the sea and plead with us to take them.